Hello, everybody, and welcome to the return of myself into the International Simulation Football League, or the ISFL. If you don't know who I am, my name is Valor, and I'm just a guy who loves sim sports and shit posting about them, of course. In today's podcast, I will explain my decision on why I chose to return to the league. I'll answer a few questions and talk about what I'm planning to do with this player going forward. All right. Before we get into, I have the current index standings as of week 1, which we sim on Monday on here. So first, I'll explain why I decided to return to the league. As you know, as most of you know, I previously had another player in the league from S40 to S50. It was a running back by the name of Nikiri Hayame, which is pretty much named after the VTuber with the same name, likeness, and all of that. But I don't use any AI, just a player render. I don't steal any of content, thank God, because I don't want to get labeled as that. So she had a pretty successful career. Played with the Cape Town Crash her entire career. Won league MVP in S46. As of right now, she still holds the single season scrimmage yards record. And in her rookie year of S41, won the Ultimates that year, officially ending my championship drought. Because up until that point, I was in the league since S13. I had never won the Ultimates before. I've been to the game a couple times, but always come out short. Now, the reason I'm back. At the end of S50, I was pretty burned out at the time, and I was starting a newer job. It was about a year ago when I left. I decided that I felt at that time that I have done everything in that league. To be fair, winning a championship, breaking a record, winning the league's MVP, and being named All-Pro a couple times, which is a lot. I've also done a lot of great graphics over the years, doing podcasts such as this. And then, of course, I have other leagues at the time, like PBE and SHL, who I'm also max earning over there as well. However, another big reason I left ISFL was I was not able to get a job. Specifically, I was looking to go into the draft graphics. The only reason they probably wouldn't let me in is because I suck at doing the helmet swaps. So, if any of them would like to teach me how I could do a proper helmet swap, I would really appreciate it. Anyway, low bank account, that reason aside, and being burned out, things have changed over a year, and I ultimately decided that I officially was going to call off my official retirement from the league and decide to come back with a different player. And once again, I'm going to stick as a running back. However, there is a special circumstance that I am willing to switch. I am willing to switch to wide receiver or quarterback. That's right. My graphics should be enough to pump in the graphics and podcasts should be enough to help pump money enough that I'm able to afford the equipment each season. Or if I could manage to land a league job that would make me be able to do these less frequently than what I have to do now. Now, obviously, I can't afford this season's equipment, and I still have a couple of graphics that need to be graded. So I still have a decent cash flow on its way. So I also decided that I was like, what the heck? Goodbyes don't last forever. And I decided to come back to the league with a running back. I decided to tell myself a little personal challenge. Can I top the current player? Can I top the career Ayame had? There was one part of her goal that Ayame failed to achieve. 10,000 yards rushing. Sure, she made for it combined with all-purpose yards, pretty much making her an all-purpose monster. Her S45, was dominant. I'm shocked that Ayame did not win MVP that year. Or at least Offensive Player of the Year. I will still argue to the day that my player was robbed of the award, and that the S46 MVP was a makeup call, essentially. Anyway, personal grievances aside, I have a couple people who are supporting me to make sure that I do not ruffle any guys' feathers. People like Joe, Ben Dover are also around to make sure that I still seek advice from them to ensure that I have a peaceful transition this time around, so I don't have any problems. One thing I do as well is that I don't talk very much as I used to when I first started doing these, because I take a look back at all my past content and I'm like, man, this guy was a massive dick back then. And the truth is, I can still be a dick at times, but I just don't like talking because I often say the wrong thing. And with that out of the way, I'm officially back in, and a huge thanks to the rookie mentors for helping me get myself set up, unable what I was able to do, and quickly I was able to get back into the league swing of things, doing all the off-season stuff, the training camp, the off-season task, season predictions just before the thing closed. So I'm essentially back at a max sort of pace. Obviously, I am still waiting for the late joiner thing to claim. That's another 30 TPE that's yet to come. Now, I'm not going to DM the guy that does the grading yet, because the last time he graded them, he literally did them the same day the person posted it. I'm just letting you know that I use zero AI when writing my media. To me, using AI is the definition of being lazy, untalented, and you're looking for a cheap way to get through things. That is completely unacceptable. And if you get caught once in AI using AI in the league, you're going to be labeled as lazy. As someone who only use AI for like base build stuff and only use your assumptions as your media, like for example, your ideas, and don't type it on some chat bot or something, because that's lazy. Alright, that's enough of my mini rant I did there. So let's take a look here at the ISFL standings I have on my screen. As you can see, 1 week in, they're doing the week 2 sibs as I'm recording this. So they might, obviously, we're taking a look here. We had a couple wild games, specifically the game between Baltimore and Colorado and New York, Arizona. Remember, Baltimore is the defending champion after demolishing New York on an 800 TP quarterback, nonetheless. There are ways you can get that to work. You just need to have the right supporting cast around. Like, so far, all of the games were decided by one score. To prove that there is a lot of parity in the league, which is pretty great. Now, as you know, I've recreated as a running back once again. The player name is Valor. Yes, I used the Videl from Dragon Ball as my render. So, let's see here. Let's take a look and go through some of the recent drafts that happened. Apparently, from what I haven't been in the league since S50, so S53 is my first full-time season back. So from what I heard, apparently the leagues have been dealing with a multi problem for a while, and 2 straight dreadful draft classes. That's right. A lot of players going IA, and there were even calls of contraction in the DSFL. But luckily, this class, who'll get drafted to the ISFL next season, pretty much saved a lot of teams from contraction, essentially, from what I heard. I do apologize, and my league knowledge is pretty sporadic. It's just because I got back into it this week. And essentially, I'm trying to relearn everything. So, last time I remember correctly, I just saw that the Chicago Butchers rebranded to the Osaka Kaiju, but since I've been gone, another rebrand has occurred. The Berlin Fire Salamanders are now known as the Black Forest Brood, and yeah, that team is not very good. I don't like the branding at all, and they're pretty terrible this season. They're actively tanking. They have a lot of draft capital in the next draft. If I'm not mistaken, they have, including their own, 3 first-round picks in the upcoming draft. They also own the Hawks and Crash picks. Potentially, that Crash pick could be in the top 5. So that's 2 top 5 picks. I'm going to quickly talk about what I thought was going to happen. The ASFC, in my opinion, is going to be a dogfight between New York, who's been a recent power, who, if I'm not mistaken, has won a couple championships in a row recently. And yeah, if you see any Discord DM things show up in my stream, I can't help it. I'm just a guy doing a bunch of stuff at once. In my opinion, there are a couple surprises who could, like, in my opinion, the ASFC is pretty much 2 bottom feeders and then a couple teams fighting for that spot. We all know Arizona and New York are the 2 top teams in the AFC, and then that final spot is a dogfight between, I would say, Honolulu and New Orleans. Austin is on a rookie quarterback. I'd say they're a few pieces away from possibly going on an Ultimus run. They have not gotten there since I believe it was the mid S40s when they won the title. If my memory serves me right. And then we take a look at the NSFC side. Oh boy. There are a lot of bad teams in that conference. So obviously, Baltimore's going to take a step back this season from what I heard. Yellowknife is definitely a strong team this season. They just did a lot of moves in the off season, especially playing some big gamble trades. So they're clearly in win now mode. It's essentially ultimates or bust for them. And then you got them, the top seed. I'd say Sarasota is another strong team that should place second. And then the wild card spots between Baltimore and then also from what I heard, Colorado is definitely a team who's finally out of their rebuild. Because if my memory serves me right, S48 they didn't win a single game. They finished 0-16. So they're finally out of their rebuild. Steg has done a very good job of turning the organization around. And then we get to the 3 bottom feeders of the conference. In my opinion, the Black Forest Brood are not a very good brand organization, from what I've heard. If I'm wrong, and this gets me essentially blackballed from their draft process, I'm sorry. It's the honest truth. I've heard from a couple people that they did not want to go there because apparently they don't want to be on a rebuilding team. Now, I don't care, but if I see the organization is seeing people leave rapidly, or if they haven't done anything to improve, that's essentially a dying organization, and it's time to abandon ship. And then Osaka's just entering a rebuild too. They have a couple. They essentially just entered the rebuild. They traded pretty much everyone worth of any value away to upper teams. That's why they're building up draft capital in the S54 and S55 draft. Of course. Then my old team, Cape Town, they've been pretty much stuck in mediocrity ever since Ayame retired, my player. Who, if you don't know, she's eligible for Hall of Fame this off season. A good chance she does get in. Cape Town is pretty much a distant third to last in that conference because Black Force and Osaka are pretty much battling for the first overall pick. And with San Jose being bad, Osaka is pretty much guaranteed to have 2 picks in the top 5, which is pretty damn impressive because remember, San Jose is also on a rookie quarterback, which ironically is my IRL brother. Everybody calls him Jabbar in the league. I just call him Bendover or Dover sometimes. Yes, I know the name sounds funny because it kind of is, and I literally just do most of his SIGs for him anyway. Enough of my yapping a little bit. Let's go. Let's see. I'm about 15 minutes in for this pod, so let's move on to another topic. It's a little bit of a project I'm working on. It's essentially what the standings would look like if everything holds, like based on projections. On my projected model, the first round would look something like this. Black Forest holds the Crash and Hawks picks. Honolulu owns on the Honors pick and their own. Osaka owns their own pick and San Jose's. Everybody else holds a pick. We go to round 2 and things get very, very, very interesting. If we skip down to the second round. So you can take a look. Most of the teams have their pick. Black Forest does not own their own second. They don't have it until 23rd. Cape Town is 2 seconds. They could use those, possibly, to move up. But definitely looks like we're going to have at least 2 full rounds of talent. Possibly 3. I'm not sure if there is any GM in this class. But we'll see what happens in the draft. It's about a month's time, a month and a half away because the new season just started. We'll just take a look and see what's going on. Anyway, let's before I jump into some questions, I am just going to switch over here and take a look at some media that caught my attention. But anyway, let's go for some of the drama that I've missed. But rule 1, don't make any bad jokes, or else womp womp tampering. We got a tampering punishment here, like ineligible player there. Leaking, tampering, a lot of tampering actually, good lord. And then recently we had a couple multis. And then we got an update that just dropped. I think it was recently. Yep. Essentially, they had to redo it. Okay. Because we had some controversy surrounding the multi stuff. Yeah, that's not much left in there. So anyway, taking a look. over here. Let's take a look at some league media, shall we? Duosu's Legacy Score Series back again. Someone analyzing the DSFL draft classes and see who's drafted well and who did not draft well. Because everybody knows the DSFL draft is always a crapshoot. You just don't know if you're going to get a user that will be a big impact or will they fizzle out before posting a single update. And someone asked GM questions. Now, for my mock draft, what I'm going to plan on doing is create a list of team needs, the top 5 ones. This will help the methodology for the mock. So I can start. Then there's beef about geometry stuff. What the hell? Love media. Here is my media, my return media, which I wrote a rookie's guide to the draft. Essentially, what, from my point of view, from what I see of standings. So essentially, we got a lot of great media going on. Let's take a look at our podcasting scene. Obviously, as you can tell, you're listening to mine, or viewing mine, because this will be uploaded to YouTube. Yeah, if you don't know, I use YouTube for my podcast uploads now because I'm using StreamYard as my new recording software. A couple of friends have been using it, and now I can even show my face if I want to, but not today. There will be a time that it will happen, but not today. Let's take a look. Most recent podcast. And I'd say we've had a couple of great podcasts. Bamford. There's Joe, of course. He's still around. IO is still, Skin Dog is still around doing his podcast. I've known him from PBE, so good user. Bamford. The Hawks have their own podcast now. That's pretty cool. T Money, which is the New Orleans GM, is doing his podcast. So it's good to see that the podcast scene is thriving once again, because it was pretty dire when I left the league. Some new folks have stepped up to take the recording and express their views on the league, which I think is great. So I did post a question, Fred. I'm not going to get into it just yet, but eventually, you want to know why I showed that mock thing? It's because I have decided one of my future episodes is going to feature a mock draft on who I think is going to go where, based on needs and user. Eventually, for the setup for this, I'm going to send this to GMs to essentially ask them what their biggest team needs are, so I could get scientifically the data needed to do that. And I'll ask specifically which users they're possibly looking into. So you'll probably get the most up-to-date information and the most accurate model possible. Now, in my opinion, getting a mock exactly right is pretty much near impossible, unless you got leaks. If you got leaks, you essentially kind of have an advantage. Anyway, but I don't recommend using leaks. Keep it to yourself and don't share them to anybody else. It's called classified information for a reason, people. Alright, so I see we're about 24 minutes in. I feel like we're ready to get into some of the questions. Alright. And they are right here in the podcast question thread. There's another podcast and a good from. Okay. Alright. First question here comes from Joe Steele. Longtime user. I've known him from earlier. Like, he came around when I was about to leave the league. He asked me, this is a non-ISFL question, who's your top 3 waifus and why? Let's just say I'm not very a big weeb. Some people think I'm a big one, but I'm not quite on the level of somebody like Raven or a former user known as Jiggly once was. Because if I'm not mistaken, Jiggly's now going on to be a VTuber from what I've seen. So if I were to take a swing at this category, number 1 would be Videl by default. That was the original character I started simping for. Second one, this is pretty tough. I would say Esdeath. Some people are trying to get me to watch that anime, and I thought Esdeath was an appealing character. And ooh, this is tough. Probably Marin from Dress Up Darling would be my third one. Would be yeah. So I said Videl, Esdeath, and Marin as my picks. Thank you for your questions, Joe Steele. Next question comes from Jay Reed. First thing says, what's your favorite brand of shampoo? There's only one brand I've been using my entire life. Head and Shoulders has been the kind that I use IRL. Now, at least don't ask about a certain other thing, because if I see a question that I think is too hypersensitive, I will say I am not going to answer that question. Or I'll just say, like, keep on searching, my friend. That's going to be my answer to that. So I say Head and Shoulders specifically because it keeps my dandruff at bay because I'm known for sensitive skin. Like, I'm essentially a walking health time bomb. I'm diabetic essentially. I've had gout in my ankle for a while. I frequently get ingrown toenails, although I haven't had one for over a year, so that's good. And unfortunately today at work, I had a bruise in one of my in my left thumb, which freaking sucks. Because it hurts like hell. Next question he asks, why could your team above any others make it to the Ultimate this year? So if you don't know, I was claimed on waivers by the defending Ultimate champions, the Kansas City Coyotes. I previously played for them once. It did not end very well because essentially, me 6 years ago versus the me now, I would pretty much see that guy and said, fuck that guy. Fuck 6 years ago. That version of Valor is pretty much dead to me because he's essentially was a massive dick and pretty much kept fucking around and found out pretty quickly that being like that burns bridges in the league. It took him a few years to realize that, but here I am today, a much better person. I would say based experience. The realization is that the more send downs you have, the stronger the team in theory should be. But we have typical symbolics, like if you're about to pull an upset, but then all of a sudden have a bad turnover at the goal line or something. Yeah, that's typical draft day sports pro football for you, or DDSP, SPF, which is our sim engine for you. I would say veteran experience and a good GM. Next question comes from Lord Cole Cat, who is still the general manager of the Cape Town Crash, and for a while was a guy who managed me during my later years at Cape Town. LCC asks, in recreating at running back, is your aim for this player to top Ayame's illustrious career? If so, what goals would you consider appropriate? I did design this player with that goal in mind. Essentially, I am trying to get to 10,000 yards rushing, which I think is a reasonable goal. Now, if I have to hop teams to get that goal, that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. But another Ultimus would be cool. Now, I would say a goal would be potentially first overall, but I don't think that's reasonable for me because I do not see myself as first overall material. I really don't. I would say probably top 10 is my ceiling. My floor is literally the gosh darn third round because some of the GMs know my reputation already and that I was a bit of a rattlesnake. I still kind of am, but I prefer just to talk to GMs my true feelings in DMs. So they keep it a secret, essentially, because the one thing I want to have, if you take me, is that you can trust, is that I want to make sure that I can trust you, that you can manage the team correctly. Because I don't want a GM that can manage the team as a bad manager that has a bunch of teams but then can't draft a good player to save his life, or has a good team but just keeps choking in the playoffs. But that's the sim for you, so the whole thing was pretty crazy. So I'd say the goals for Ayame, let me repeat them again: 10,000 yards rushing, uh, potentially breaking the scrimmage yard record once again for single season, uh, top 10 pick in the upcoming draft, and let's say another Hall of Fame and another Ultimus. So pretty high expectations for this player, knowing how dominant I can build an elite running back. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Potentially Cape Town takes me again, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be available at their selection. We have Dev Zero. Oh, also, I love that render design, by the way. He asks a simple question: sweet or savory? It depends on the food. If I try, sometimes I prefer a bit more spicier stuff. Spice is kind of rare where I'm from. It's Maryland, if you don't know. The spiciest thing we have here is Old Bay seasoning. There's a default rule that says you have to have one in your household, or you're not from, or you're going to pretty much be seen as a scapegoat, or pretty much seen as not Maryland enough to do anything. So I would say savory in my opinion because the flavor means everything in life. Because if you got no flavor, you got no life. That's the saying that I sometimes do. I just made that shit up. Because often I hate to say this, but I lie a lot in life, which isn't very good. Next question is from Cowboy Blender, who just came this draft. Can you take a look at this rash I got? Can I be honest with you? This is probably the stupidest question I have seen in any of my podcasts throughout the years. Why would you show a health ailment on stream? Like, that honestly disgusts me. That's the stuff that would piss me off. If you're posting it for clout, honestly, don't do that. I'm just giving you advice before I snap. Please, for the love of God, don't be a toxic user. Because the league does not have any room for more rats like that. The league is better without any rats in it. That's just my opinion. So, I'm going to say, no, I cannot look at the rash unless you post in my Discord DMs that it's going to make me vomit for 2 hours straight. And the final question is from Too Sweet. He asks, who's my favorite Dragon Ball Z villain? I would say, throughout the entire Dragon Ball franchise, if we go series by series, OG Dragon Ball, it's Demon King Piccolo by far, because, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, let's see what we got here. DBZ, I would say Cell. I've really loved his design. I love the fact that he's definitely one of the harder villains to kill in Z because he has the ability to regenerate and come back stronger. And the fact is, he almost killed everybody. And he was one of the few villains that were actually successful in the deaths of multiple Z fighters. Death of Goku, Trunks, almost killed Android 16. All those characters got wiped out by him. Anyway, thanks for the question. Let's see. How much time do I have left? 36 minutes. Let's figure out some topics of. Anyway, let's go. I want to go review the S41 draft. The S40 draft, which. Yeah, I love reviewing old drafts. Let's go to. It's on here somewhere. I think it was S41. Yeah. No, it was S40. Let's review them. Obviously, Live Else to the Lookout was a hit. Cairo was a hit. Tulliver was a hit. Ryder, I think, was a miss. Not So Smart was a good pick. Crashmore, eh. Frank, of course, good. Farquaad was good. A lot of mid in this draft. Reminder that I did not go until the third round. And I've argued I'm one of the best players of the draft. So, yeah, not much going on here. Not much changed in my opinion of this draft, but I think I'm going to wrap up this episode right here at a pretty good pace. Kept it nice, short, and sweet, and some quick stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching this, and take care, and I hope we will talk to you again very soon. Thank you so much. See ya.